Clintus, my original reaction here was to say, welcome to episode 30 of Star Wars and Scotch, but I know that's not what I'm supposed to say in this scenario, so I'm going to say the right thing that I'm supposed to say, which is welcome to episode 30 of the Old Fashioned Podcast.
It's a podcast.
But yeah, my initial reaction was to say, welcome to Star Wars and Scotch, because I've said that like 90-something times. So, but welcome to Old Fashioned. It's me and Clintus today. Mike is not able to join us, but this is exactly why we asked Clintus to be a part of the show, was because we could do this. Mike has a crazy work schedule. I also have a crazy work schedule. Clintus, you have a pretty crazy schedule at times. So but
it's just
works.
me. It's just me. So there's no and honestly, I already told you guys this. You come first. You put this on my calendar. Everything else comes around. I just canceled internet tech because of the show. I was like, oh, you have to come back later, man. I have a Zoom call.
I told him he didn't have to do that, but he did it. So thank you. And you should all be thanking Clintus.
When Kevin calls, you answer.
At Clintus on Twitter and other places. And it's Clintus on YouTube?
Everything. Yep.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Because you used to be Clintus TV, and then you got everything changed, right?
Yeah, well, technically YouTube is Clintus TV, but I also have Clintus. So again, so old that I have both. They go to the same channel.
Grandfathered in.
Yeah.
That's why when Paul found out that I was able to, with the old K Magic 101 YouTube that then turned into the old Old Worst Radio Show YouTube. That's now was Old Fashioned and now is going to be Rare Drop Permanent, all because of monetization. That's the funny thing, is because I have an old YouTube channel from like 7 years ago.
Yep.
Once I got 100 subscribers, they were like, all right, you can make money now, which they don't do anymore, right? It's 1,000 now.
That's 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah. And 1,000's not easy when you're getting started from like scratch. When you're starting from the bottom and trying to work your way up, 1,000 is not easy.
Yeah, well, and there's three metrics. It's like watch time, like minutes watched, subs, and I forget the third. There's a third one, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's not easy for sure. And then what's also tricky too is like my daughter's channel just got demonetized. Like she wasn't keeping up, and so if you go so long and you don't meet the requirements, it falls out. And I'm kind of waiting for my gaming channel to get like the warning, like, hey, you're not, because I don't really post on my gaming channel anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of like, I'm looking at my stats, like technically I'm not getting the watch time, but I think it's for 12 months. So like if I don't meet the requirements for 12 full months, that's when I think you lose partnership.
Interesting. I had no idea. Well, there you go. You all got a lesson on YouTube this morning for free. So go tip Clintus now. Oh man, so you have the nitro cold brew that I have not tried yet.
Yes, it's very tasty. Being here in Arizona, it's hot real quick. We were talking about before the show started, like I still prefer hot coffee. Like when I go to coffee shops and I'm getting myself a nice latte, I almost always want to order it hot, at least for the first time. I've never had it before because it's like it just tastes better. But I also I can't drink hot coffee. Like I have a very sensitive tongue. I burn my tongue all the time. My wife's always like, it tastes fine, and I'm like, I burn my tongue. So I get iced coffee a lot of times just because I can enjoy it quicker. I can just drink it faster. But yeah, nitro cold brew is my jam. So when I heard that King's Coast was doing it in-house, I was just like, ah! I ordered four packs, and I was like stocking up the mini fridge. I'm ready to rock and roll.
And the cold brew, the cool thing is it's going to be revolving. So every I don't want to say the exact time frame, but you figure around every 6 weeks ish, there'll be a new flavor of cold brew dropping.
Love it.
And I guarantee you they're going to go within a day every time, because that's something people are rabid for. That's something we didn't offer last year because we were building out the program. And actually, financially, we lost money because we didn't sell cold brew, which is shocking, but understandable at the same time. But yeah, so cold brew is back. It's back for good. We have most of the stuff in-house. And you should be keeping your eyes peeled over at kingscoastcoffee.com to see when that cold brew comes back. And I can tell you there will be offerings where Kings Club gets preferential treatment. So if you're not on our subscription program, you absolutely should be, because, you can get offerings that other people aren't. I know Jamaican Blue Mountain, they do on first offering at Kings Club sometimes, just because we can only get so many of them. So we try and reward the folks who treat us the best and
absolutely
love us. So yeah, kingscoastcoffee.com. And the only other thing today is GCX is around the corner. It is soon. It's so close. Trust me, I know. And right now, while we're recording, the GCX channel is very much live. CM and Sam are doing their Magic Words show on the GCX channel, giving everyone information about GCX. Notice it's not me, thank God. No offense, but you guys were all screwing with my mental health all of those years when I was on those streams. So I have taken a step back to do what I do, which is run things behind the scenes because y'all are crazy.
You do it so well, dude. You do it so well.
Look, it was difficult, but I could still do it. But I prefer to put other people in front of the camera just because, you know, that's what I prefer. It's my personal preference. But gcxevent.com/tickets. They're announcing right now. They're announcing bunch of creators that are going to be there. We got some voice actors coming to do signings. We got escape room. We got what else? A lot of tabletop stuff, D&D. I said in Discord yesterday that we had put a request into our friends at Microsoft, not just a generic request. Like I asked people we know, said, hey, can we stream the Microsoft presser direct from the floor? I'm sure I'm going to get a yes back. So when we get that yes back, we'll prepare to do a panel that'll have a reaction for everything. So that was just perfect timing for us because that presser is going to be on Sunday, the Bethesda Xbox One, which Clintus and I will be theorizing something about later in the show today. But gcxevent.com/tickets, go get yours and, make it happen. I can hear Paul's computer breaking in the other room. He keeps tripping his power supply. So it's beeping. I know you can't hear it on the stream, but I can hear it because he's monitoring the GCX thing, streaming that and recording this at the same time, and I don't think his computer can handle it. So it's funny. It's funny. We're gonna have to get him 2 computers. He's gonna be like Megadesk from Parks and Rec. Megadesk was from Office. Parks and Rec was when Ron had the circular desk.
The circular desk, yeah.
Yeah, and he tried to ignore people by spinning in a circle. Because what's his name wanted to do it more like aerodynamic friendly or what? I don't remember. That's not the right word. Anyway, how was your week, man?
It was good, dude. It was good. So if we circle back to last week's episode, right, we talked about WoW and my lack of MMO experience. I have since rectified that. So we can get into that. But I just... it's been kind of a crazy week, like a lot of things going on. My daughter's got prom tomorrow, so kind of been like going with her and prepping that in regards to getting her settled with that, and figuring out what her plans are and figuring out what we're okay with as parents, because it's her junior year, so it's her first prom. So going through the motions there.
I guess that's the part where Max is going to go B, or Nate, whoever's editing, B with the technical difficulty thing up. And, then we'll come back and it'll be us right here. And hopefully this stays in. Anyway, Clintus, how was your week?
Week was good, man. Week was good. If we roll back to last week's episode and my lack of MMO experience, I rectified that. And so we're going to jump into that. But on a personal note, my daughter's got prom this tomorrow, actually, as of this recording. So helping her get through that, like plan this, plan that, what she's going to do, trying to figure out before and the after, and what we're okay with and stuff like that, because it's her first prom as a junior. So it's been a good week. Can't complain.
My proms were both very uneventful. It was like
my wife and I are a year apart, so we had 3, and we're trying to remember. Like I honestly, we can't remember my junior year. We totally remember my senior year. We remember her senior year. Like we remember those 2, and like we could count, but we couldn't remember like the first one we went to, the junior one. I'm like, well, it's longer and most likely uneventful because it was our first one. We had better plans the second time around.
Yeah, we just we went the second one. We just hung out with some friends, and then that was it. Everybody went home, and then my wife's prom we went to because it was down here. We went to the beach and hung out, and I got my wallet stolen. So that's the only reason I remember her prom, because then her parents had to give me money because I got my wallet back, so I got my ID so I could fly home, but they had taken like all of the cash. I mean, this was a long time ago, so debit cards were not as widely used, but they took the cash out, and that sucked. Anyway, my week was I went to PAX, and
how was Boston?
Boston was good to go again. I stayed in a different part at this time. When I went for the Coffee Expo, I went to the harbor area, and this time I stayed in the Commons area. So it was a bit quieter. I was a little farther away from where all the PAX people were staying. Mm-hmm. But it was good. I went to some nice restaurants, got to see a bunch of people, that we haven't seen in a while. And also got to meet some new people that I haven't met before. So It was great having conversations and meeting people. Most of my time was spent off the floor. The only time I was really on the floor was I went to the tabletop area to introduce ourselves from a GCX perspective. Kind of like checked out the floor and made sure, there was anyone we needed to talk to from a large booth perspective. But the thing I noticed this year was a lot of the folks from the companies weren't even there. It was mostly PR companies and whatnot running booths for the devs. Yeah, and the only AAA developer there was 2K.
Oh, wow.
Tiny Tina. That was it. Everything else was indie or smaller, and Intel had like the size of like 4 booths. It was huge footprint that Intel had. So it was great. There was probably over the course of the weekend, I would guess about 50,000 people, down from roughly 80, which is what they used to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think because Saturday was sold out, and I think they capped the number at a lower number than was anticipated. So overall, it was good. And enjoyable. Made me excited for GCX. Also made me feel better about the struggles we're having with GCX, because it seems to be industry wide, not just the same ones we're having. So that made me feel a lot better. And as things get better, then hopefully events will too. But yeah, so PAX was good. I had some lobster in Boston. Tim went to Fenway Park without me. I'm super pissed because Will Middlebrooks invited him and Rexilla to Fenway Park, and he left me to go to Fenway because, I'm the only baseball fan in the company. So whatever, just go to Fenway Park. So, that was I got tattooed yesterday. That was the only other thing.
Really?
Right here. Yeah, it got colored in. But my tattoo artist is moving, so now I need to find a new tattoo artist in Florida because he's only going to be back like once a year to do work, and I go like 3-4 times a year to, my old man body's getting old, and I can only tolerate so much at a time now. So I'm trying to like wrap it up. And you say that when you have a lot, but you just keep going at some point. And but he was telling me the guy before him was probably in his mid to late 50s, and he's like, he only comes for like an hour on a weekday morning, like every couple of months. Like he just doesn't want to sit for a long time. And I was like, yeah, I'm almost there too, because I sat for 2.5 hours yesterday. I was like,
I ain't got time for this.
I'm miserable. It's just annoying.
The thing. So I just turned 40 this last year, right? And I talked about getting my first tattoo at 40.
Mm-hmm.
But then I forget who the conversation came about, but my daughter turns 18 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And she's already like got ideas and plans. She's like, oh, I'm definitely getting tattoos. And I already thought about this, and this. And so I was like, maybe I'll wait for you and we'll go together and we'll get our first tattoos together. So that's kind of like what I'm leaning on.
My oldest wants a matching tattoo with her, me, my wife, her stepdad, and her mom. She wants the 5 of us to have one matching tattoo.
Yeah.
It's like a connection to all of us. So we were all like, because me and her stepdad have a ton, and then her mom has a few. Danielle has none, but she said she would do it for, Audrey.
See, that's how I am. So that's okay. So that's the real quick side story on tattoos. My brothers, I have 2 younger brothers. I'm the oldest. My youngest brother drew a tattoo for us, and it's Clint, Austin, Travis. That's my brothers in that order. So my mom always introduced us as like, these are my boys, Clint, Austin, Travis. You can remember who's who by going CAT, C-A-T. So my brother drew this. The original one was badass. The second one was okay, and that's what ended up being the tattoo. But it's a C-A-T that makes like the face of a cat, like the way he drew it. And the first one was like actually tiger, where it was in the stripes, and then he lost it. And the second one he did was more of like just, it almost looks like the Thundercats logo, right? So it's like a C-A-T. And we're like, we should get that as a tattoo. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. And we like try to make this plan. My youngest brother, being immature and impatient, went and did it without us and got it done. And I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Like, we're supposed to do this together. It's supposed to be our first thing together. I was like, all right, screw it. Austin, me and you, buddy. He ends up going to do it without him too. He's like, just get it done, man. Just whenever you're convenient. I'm like, that's not the point. It was supposed to be a brother thing. We're supposed to do it together. And yeah, so then they both got it done, and I never got it done. I never got it done, because it's like, it was the whole point was lost on me. Plus they got it on their back of their neck. I'm like, you can't even see it. You can't even appreciate it. Like if I ever were to get it done, I'd get it on my shoulder or my chest, or like, something where if I get a tattoo, I want to be able to see it first of all, And so, yeah, so that was to me, if I'm going to do it, it has to have some kind of meaning behind it. So I like the idea of that. What you're doing with potentially with your daughter, especially since you guys are all close, like stepmom, mom, like you guys are all close. You guys are all friends and partners and stuff. So it's super cool and has a lot more meaning that way, for sure.
Well, the funny thing is, and we talk about this all the time, is the older you get, the less you care about meaning.
Yeah, true.
When you have a bunch, like I used to like put deep thought into it, and then I got the outline of this one, and it's a magpie. So the reason I got the magpie is the myth behind the magpie is they're attracted to like shiny jewels and whatnot, and it's not true, but it's a myth. So my wife actually came up with the idea because I've always wanted a tattoo for her, because I have on this pectoral I have a buck for my son, and then for my oldest daughter I have a dove over here somewhere, and then I have a sandhill crane for my youngest daughter because she was born in Florida, and they fly around our backyard and make really loud, annoying noises, but they're beautiful birds. So that was the reason behind that one. So I was like, all right, if we're gonna do, she doesn't want her name or anything because they all have their names, but she doesn't want her name. She just wanted something like representing her. So we did the magpie, and it's got like baubles and jewels and stuff. You can look on my Instagram, by the way, if you want to see it. And in the nest with it, and then it has I put a crown on it, so it's a queen, and there was this like aura behind its head, and she's like, "Is that the moon?" Because the hunter one has the sun coming up behind it, and she's like, when you did the outline, she's like, "Is that the moon?" I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "What do you mean you don't know?" I was like, "You don't ask anymore. You stop." Once you hit a certain age, after you've gotten a bunch, you stop telling the artist, like, this is what I want you to do. All you do is go in with an idea, and they go, you like this? And you go, mm-hmm, and then they do it. That's it. There's no more conversation. There's no more, could you do this? Could you tweak this? Could you change it? They hate that. And we had a discussion about it this morning with Wayne and Pete, and they were like, yeah, think how many dudes come in and they're just like, I want this, and if you could angle it this way and you could put it, like, how annoying it must be to be a tattoo artist. And by the time they get to you, they hate everything. So if you go to like a junior artist or an apprentice, they're usually really psyched because they're new to it. If you go to the older, like, tenured folks, which is who I go to now, they just want to get paid. They're like so over it at that point. So it's really funny to see that, and the fact that I had no idea. So I went back to him. I was like, Nick, that's an aura, right? Or something. He's like, yeah, I don't know, like Halo or something. It's just like design. And I was like,
it looks good.
I said, can it be a moon? Because that'd be cool with the sun. And also, remember in Game of Thrones, Drogo, whatever his name was, used to call Khaleesi his moon and his stars.
Yeah.
So I'd say that to Danielle. So I was like, yeah, it would work for moon. He's like, yeah, whatever, Kevin, it can be whatever you want it to be. I was like, yeah, sounds good. Let's do that. So he made it a moon at last minute. And then the only other thing he did was in the bird's mouth is a long chain, which that was fun because he had to outline each bead of the chain. And then he put the color in it, and then he put a shimmer on it for reflected light. So he just kept going over the same spots, and I was like, ah! And it goes down by my nipple. So that was a good time.
I see that. It looks good. It looks good though. It looks good.
Yeah, I'm done with touching my. I was like, I'll do something on my sternum now. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good on the chest. Like I've done enough. I'm gonna do some filler. That's about it. But if you look down by the bottom, there's 3 jewels, and those are the kids' birthstones.
Oh yeah, nice.
So it's garnet, diamond, and ruby, and that's Audrey, Hunter, and Julesy.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's that. There is cool meaning behind it, but like my wife came up with most of it. The bright idea I had was the crown.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that, but now I got to go find someone new. I'm probably gonna look outside of Tampa though, because Tampa does not have a great selection of artists like New York did.
Gotcha.
So I went to 3 different people in New York. And one of them owns 2 shops. He's in his 60s now. He used to be my mom's neighbor, like legendary tattoo artist. The other one has a 4-year waiting list now, so I'm definitely not getting in with him anytime soon. And the third one got in trouble for tax evasion and has not been heard from ever since. So he was actually my first tattoo. So I don't know where he is. Plus, he didn't do a great job, so I didn't want to go back anyway. So I'm probably gonna start looking in like Miami, West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, and places like that, because they do have good shops with good reputations.
How far are you from Miami?
It's like 4.5, 5 hours, depending on what part of Miami you're going to. But you can fly for cheap, and it takes like a 40-minute flight, if even that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's one of those flights that by the time the plane gets up, it's already coming down.
That's me in Vegas. That's like me in Vegas. Yep. Vegas is exactly. A 4.5 hour drive, or like a up and down flight. That
was New York to Boston. It was always just like up and then down like that,
Like here's some water.
Yeah, by the time you're getting comfortable and getting your iPad and unbuckling your seatbelt, they're like, we're prepared, Captain Athletic.
Exactly.
So it was good. Somebody actually, ironic you say that. Oh, it was Tim when we were at PAX. He was talking about He's like, man, I miss your flight simulator streams. Those were so good. That was like one of the last things I did when I was streaming was Magic Airways. All I had was a setting on my Go XLR, and it would make me sound like, like, we're just trying to prepare down, take off. You just speak some nonsense. Yeah, I mean, we have the throttle and stuff. I donated it to Rare Drop so we could easily just create a cockpit, in one of the empty rooms here. Oh, you could make it dual purpose. Yeah, absolutely. I actually saw a setup that had 2 of the monitors. We have the long Samsung monitors, the 48-inch, I think there. And I actually saw one that had 2 of those, like, so it went to here, and then it was used for Flight Simulator. So he could, like, turn it which way he wanted. And I was like, man, its technology is so crazy. So, yeah, but that was my week. Nothing too exciting. I started watching, which I want to talk about Batman with you so we can segue into that. But on the plane, I started watching like old Batman because it inspired me. So I watched the 2 Tim Burton ones.
Okay.
They're so good. So good.
It's been a while.
And then Jerry Bruckheimer just ruins the next 2. Those are 2 of the worst movies ever.
Schumacher.
Was it Schumacher? All right,
yeah.
Schumacher.
Yeah.
Joel Schumacher.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm kind of torn because I know Gotham is Gotham, right? So it's supposed to be dark and gloomy, and Tim Burton nailed that, I think, right? It's just dark and it's wet and whatever. But I kind of dig the neon lights and like the, like in Batman Forever, the one with Val Kilmer, like I liked that transition. I thought it was kind of cool. Like Gotham kind of stepped up its game and kind of stepped into the new era and stuff. But then the whole vibe of the movie went down that path, the Riddler and even Two-Face was like, it's all bright colors and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of ruined that for me.
Everyone, and this is my theory with Batman. Batman is nothing without his rogues gallery, his villains. I think that's what sets him apart from any other superhero, any other comic, anything else, is that his villains, in my opinion, I'm saying those words, chat, in my opinion, is the best. They are the most iconic, the most recognizable in pop culture, and, everyone pretty much knows their story. So it's difficult to create new content. But with Tim Burton, like you said, I love the comic book version of Gotham brought to life in those movies. And then I think Schumacher, like you said, the sets are cool, but then they go a little bit too far, making the personalities match the sets, and it didn't match what we're used to. Now, I'm all about dynamic range when it comes to villains. I have no problem with reinventing the way they are, but doing it the right way. And we've seen it done the wrong way so many times. I love Nolan's trilogy. I think that was the best representation of what Batman in our world would be. Nothing crazy or over the top, just like a very visceral, real approach. And this movie took, I think, both of those ideas and mashed them together.
100%.
Like Gotham was comic booky enough that it felt very noir, and it had those elements of being stuck in the 50s, but also, when they showed Thomas Wayne, it said it was CCTV footage from 2020. So It did bring it into the current era as well, but it still had that old school vibe to it. And again, the villains were the important part in this for me. Was I've no problem changing the Riddler, but I love the way he was changed in this into the Zodiac Killer, essentially.
Oh yeah,
and it was a take on the Riddler that we had never dreamed of before, and he was so psychotic and so unhinged and so off the chain. But they always went back to the well, which was like, society made me this way, and they touched on the cause and effect of Batman versus the villains, who creates who instills who, which is always the best story. At the end of Batman Begins, when they introduce that the Joker's going to be the next villain. They talk about how a guy dresses up as a clown, he's crazy, and here's his calling card, and he hands it to him, So it's like the equal reaction of, good versus evil. When good steps up its game and the vigilante comes, well, bad is also going to step up, and that's when they're going to come back, and you get the Penguin, and you get Riddler, and now you have Joker. Well,
it's even that line towards the end, no spoilers, but like, this is full spoilers, go nuts. Okay, well, but when Gordon goes, who the hell are you? And he goes, and the guy that they just took down goes, I'm vengeance. It's like full circle, right? Like Batman's vengeance towards the beginning, like he's here to fight for the the common man, and then like you said, the villains have kind of come full circle. Like I'm vengeance for the ones that have gotten forgotten about, right?
or even in that sense, it's like, I'm vengeance. I'm just like you.
Yes.
But
I
don't have the moral standard that you also
Yes.
have. And that is what sets it apart. And that's a commentary that is applicable to things going on in the world today, is like the representation of good in the wolf in sheep's clothing that thinks they're doing the right thing, but going about it like in the most immoral and terrible possible way you can. You know, that's the difference. And that's what makes Batman so interesting, is his moral code. And that's what the villains always try and challenge, no matter what stage of Batman we're in whatever we're telling. There's always the challenge to the moral code, which is why Joker is always the yin to the yang. He's always the opposite. He always wants Batman. His goal is never truly known, because his end goal is always the same, which is like, I want Batman to break his moral code. I want him to be corrupted. I want him to come down to my depths and my level. And that's the joke. That's the funny part to me. If I can corrupt him, I can corrupt anyone.
Yep.
And they touched on that in this too, because, you know, you saw the deleted scene with the Joker, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm referencing that here because he nails everything that happens in the movie, and he doesn't, all he looks at is a few pieces of paper. But the thing that he got really well is when Batman's leaving and we see his face for the first time, and which is in and of itself incredible. And he's like, "You think they deserved it?" And he starts laughing and he's saying it over and over and louder. And Batman just turns and walks out the door, because Batman at that point is like, "Fuck, he's right. Like, I do think that they deserved it because they were corrupt, you know, pieces of garbage that weren't helping Gotham."
Right.
But that's the joke to the Riddler, like, you're fighting against yourself. You're battling yourself, and you think those people, the mayor, it was the mayor, right, in the beginning?
Yep.
The mayor, the DA, they deserved it because they were in cahoots with the bad people representing themselves as good. So in a way, he's like, doesn't he say at one point, he did your job for you or something?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Along those lines, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that whole, you know, juxtaposition of Batman's here, but then he's protecting people that, you know, technically are they as bad as the Riddler? Are they as bad as the Joker? Like, that's the question. And that is the best version of Batman, where they start to like unravel the moral fabric and really not make it so black and white and muddy it up and make it gray, because you don't really have the right answer, because it's like, yeah, the mayor was a piece of shit. He probably should have been killed, but should it have happened that way at the hands of this man? Like, it's like, you really start to question. That was what The Dark Knight was. It was just that constant questioning of morality, the entire movie, the speech in the hospital. You know, like, if I tell you a little mayor's going to die, you all lose your mind. But if I tell you a convoy of soldiers gets blown up, no one blinks an eye. Yeah. You know, and that's what, to me, and Marvel did a really good job in the MCU of making, you know, morality a bigger picture, you know, when the Avengers go rogue and everything, with the Sokovia Accords and after Ultron. They did that, but I think Batman is the pinnacle of like that. What's the word I'm trying to say? That moral fabric, and you know how justice isn't concrete. My daughter even said, she was like, because she saw it with me. She said the vengeance part. She was like, he doesn't know that he's supposed to be justice yet because he's so young. He thinks vengeance is the answer. He doesn't know that justice is actually what he represents, because, you know. But, and again, it flips it again, because even if Batman's justice, he's going to deliver them to the justice system, which then the criminals are going to be like, well, the justice system is just as corrupt. Yep. So, and
Full
you know,
circle.
Joker or Penguin, they'll be like, look how I'm out on the streets again. Look how I manipulated the justice system. So again, you're dealing with that. But she was like, yeah, that's why he's like super emo Bruce, because he's still dealing with the death of his parents. He hasn't come to terms with that yet. He still thinks vengeance is the answer, although by the end of the movie, he kind of realized that vengeance is not the answer. It's justice. Yeah. And that he needs to help the city, not avenge. So she made a really good point with that for me, that it was like, he's not quite there yet. And then who's the director? I forgot his name.
Ooh, I hate that. I suck at that. I don't know. Matt Reeves? No.
Matt Reeves, thank you.
Yeah.
So Matt Reeves even said, like, everyone's not really where we know them in traditional Batman media. Everyone's just getting their start. So he's like, Joker's not even quite Joker yet. He's just beginning this journey, and Batman is still dealing with all of this stuff to become the Batman we know. And he's like, even Riddler has growth, you know, and I really hope they do what Nolan did. Obviously, Heath was supposed to be in the third movie.
Yeah.
But obviously they had to take him out. But I hope they do what Nolan did. Don't kill the villains, like make them a part of the future
Absolutely.
Make them appear in the TV show because Penguin's getting his own show.
Yep. Dude, that blew my mind when I realized who that was.
Colin Farrell.
No freaking idea. He doesn't look like him, doesn't sound like him. But then when I realized it, I watched it the second time around, I was like, oh my God, you can see it in his eyes. Like, oh.
He walked by Jeffrey Wright, who played Gordon, who, by the way, was one of my favorite. He's not commissioner yet. He's still lieutenant in the movie. He's one of my favorite people to play Gordon. I love Jeffrey Wright because of Westworld. He's a phenomenal actor. So he was one of my favorite people to play Gordon ever. But when he walked by Jeffrey Wright on set, and Jeffrey Wright turned to Matt Reeves and said, "Who the hell is that?" And Matt Reeves started laughing, and he went, "Hey, Colin." And he turns around and he walks up to him and he's like, "Jeffrey," and he's in the voice because apparently once Colin Farrell put the makeup on, he was in character.
Never broke character.
Yep, he had to stay in. He never left. So he was talking to everybody like the Penguin on set, and Jeffrey was right. It was like my mind was blown. I could not believe that was Colin Farrell.
No idea.
I said neither could we watching it. That was such a great performance. And I think the way they set Penguin up, that they knocked off the two most known crime bosses in Gotham. Now Penguin can be the crime boss and he can take over the Gotham underworld. Because I like Penguin as a crime lord. I don't like when they try and except in Batman Returns, where the whole circus angle and being discarded, that was cool. But I've seen him screwed up too many times, so I really like that they're making him just straight up a mobster. And that's more of his nickname. But yeah, I loved him. I can't wait for his show to come off. But again, as long as we see people from the movies in these TV shows, and it's like MCU where the crossover is there, I think
it seems like that's kind of what the DC's doing, like with their shows.
They're doing the Gothamverse.
Yes, yeah.
So they're taking the DC universe out, and they're just doing Gotham for this project.
Oh, okay.
Because I think they've failed so many times with DCEU that they feel Batman can hold its own. It's probably one of the only IPs in comics that can literally stand on its own and does not need any help from anything else in its universe. So I think them doing a Gothamverse is super smart because it's like people like me that love Batman. We don't have to worry about Superman, Aquaman, not that. Yeah. I love Wonder Woman and Aquaman. I think they were the best casting, and it makes me really sad that we missed the mark to, have the right Justice League.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Gothamverse is what they're going to do.
Well, what's weird too is that DC's like fractured in now three ways, right? So you've got like the Flash, Green Arrow, like Supergirl. They do the crossovers over time, right? All the time. Batgirl, they recasted Batgirl, but like they do the crossovers, and that whole universe is connected. Even the new Superman, right? The new Superman series, all those series are all connected. And then you've got the movies, which is the Justice League, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, right? Like that flavor. And then you've got like the Gotham show, which I don't know if that ties in because that's like a whole different, like that's
a different
Fox.
Universe too.
Different universe, right? And now you've got this new Batman. And so like it's super weird because it's completely opposite of what Marvel has done, right? Like they started with all the movies. Now they got the TV shows that are direct connections to the movies, right? The characters and everything are crossing over. Like WandaVision, perfect example. They brought a character in from Ant-Man. They brought a character in from Thor. They brought a character in from Captain Marvel. Like boom, boom, boom into this one show. And like that's how Marvel and Disney is doing their thing. Whereas DC is like all over the place. And you're like, and I think the Flash movie, I can't confirm this, but maybe you can. Like the Flash movie is going to try and do that, where like the Flash is going to go through multiverses.
Apparently,
and bring
the Flash TV show did the multiverse too. It wasn't introduced because Darkseid and Steppenwolf in the movies constantly talked about how there's multiple universes that they have to conquer.
Yeah.
So DC out of the gate was talking about the fact that it's all connected, but they're separate universes. Marvel, I think, did it better in the sense that like they're like, here's the main universe, but now there's going to be all these splinters, and then once they got the rights to all the Fox stuff, they're like, we got to bring the X-Men in, but the right way to do it is to create the multiverse, which I think in Doctor Strange we will see the X-Men for the first time.
I'm so stoked.
Probably Fantastic Four too. But for DC, I think it was the Flash show or it was a special or something, but that was the one where like Michael Keaton was brought back. So Flash, because Flash can travel through the multiverse, right?
Yes.
Because he's so fast. Yeah. So they brought back Michael Keaton. I don't know if it was deleted or something. They brought back Smallville Superman.
Yep.
And they apparently, I think they had the I didn't see this. I heard about it and read about it. They had the two Flashes meet each other briefly for like 15 seconds.
Yes.
So they introduced it. I think it was on television, but the new Flash movie, you're right, is supposed to dive into it a bit more. So who knows what cameos will be in this movie? Although it seems like Ezra Miller has done his Flash now since he's been arrested twice in the past like 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, this Batman movie was, I keep saying, like, it's my favorite Batman movie. I won't say it's the best. Obviously, that's all subjective, but it's definitely my favorite one. And this is like that detective version, right? And he even starts off the movie where he's like narrating, like, it's Wednesday, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's totally that noir, like you said, style. You know, even when we saw the posters in the very beginning, when they started teasing it, that red, you know, vibe they had. And yeah, I really, really, really loved this movie.
One critique on the detective scenes, and I was speaking to someone at PAX this weekend who said this, and I fully agree with it. If they made the detective scenes more like the Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr., where he's walking the scene and talking to himself in his head about the scene,
and seeing
instead
things
of just like, yeah. And they almost try and bring us along for the journey of how intelligent he is, instead of like the open room and we're like, it's probably under the carpet. And he's like, it's under the carpet. And he's like ripping up the carpet. And you're like, all right. I would love it if it was more of a veiled thing. Also, from the Sherlock Holmes movies, my favorite part, and they could easily do this in Batman, is they give you the plot up front. You just have to be paying super close attention. The minor ass details that probably nobody would ever get on their first watch. You know, but they did a little bit of it, like the first shot of the Iceberg Lounge, because you know how Riddler was across the street the entire time, and we don't know that till the end of the movie.
Yeah,
he's in the shot. The first city shot of the Iceberg Lounge, he's in the shot. The light is on in his apartment, and you can see the telescope or whatever he's using to look down, and he's just standing there.
No shit.
Yep, and they pan the camera away, and he's just someone found it and posted it. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
It's right there.
That's cool.
So they did do stuff like that. I would like them to go deeper, because I want to feel like Batman is the world's greatest detective, you know? And
I will say this too. I mean, obviously when this movie first came out, there was a lot of stuff like on Twitter and Reddit, everything about like the best Batman movie, the best Bruce Wayne, blah, blah, blah. I will say I really enjoyed Ben Affleck in Justice League and Batman v Superman. Like I thought he did well, and I liked him as Bruce Wayne, and as, you know, again, he's more like older, right? Like he's kind of been around I can't do this by myself. I need help. You know, we need heroes, blah, blah. I really like that. And I hope, I don't know if there's been talk about it, I hope there is another Justice League and he plays Batman in that realm. I don't think this Batman crosses over. I think this is a totally standalone, separate thing, but I'd love to see Ben Affleck come back just for that version.
So I hated Ben Affleck less than I thought I would, but with Ben Affleck, I hated the voice modulator on Batman. It drove me nuts.
Yeah.
But I also hated Christian Bale's Batman voice, and I loved Christian Bale. Like his Batman voice was terrible.
Yeah.
You know, Batman's also two roles, so everyone should be judged by how they play Bruce Wayne and how they play Batman.
Sure.
And I also don't think it's fair to even put Pattinson in this conversation yet, because he's playing a different Batman than we've ever seen.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah, he's like super, like we've seen it in animated, we've seen it in comics, but we haven't seen this Batman played out on the screen yet, where he's so young. We saw it in flashbacks with Christian Bale, but it wasn't the movie. Like Christian Bale, yes, was learning to be Batman, but by then he had kind of coped with the death of his parents and moved forward and knew that he was Justice. He's literally, this version's learning on the job. Like he doesn't have it together. Some people said they didn't like the whole Alfred thing. I liked it because some of the movies don't really explore the emotional connection that they have, that Alfred is essentially his surrogate father.
Yeah.
But I think they went into it immediately because of the profound impact that Michael Caine had with Christian Bale's character. Like we went on an emotional freaking roller coaster with those two.
Yeah.
In the first movie, when he's hurt and he's like laying in the rain, he's like on the comm, and Alfred comes out in the car, picks him up, throws him in the back seat. He's like crying in the car. Like none of the other Alfreds really did that before. They cared, and we always saw it. But this one was kind of like the young, like, you're not my dad. Don't act like my dad.
Yeah.
You know, but then when Alfred was in the hospital, he was like, okay, you essentially are.
You are my dad. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love they casted it well too. Like it didn't click for me. Like the age gaps, right? Like a younger Alfred for a younger Bruce Wayne, right? Versus Christian Bale, you know, and Michael
Caine.
Thank you,
He'd
Michael
been
Caine.
there, yeah, he'd
Much
been there
older.
the whole time. You could tell.
Yeah, much older. Yeah, exactly.
This one's only been what 20 years since they were killed, or something, or a little bit
Yeah.
less than that, something around there.
Exactly.
So yeah, he's only probably in his late 50s.
Yep.
So I hope they explore with Andy Serkis's Alfred. That Alfred is a freaking badass, like used to be British special agent and stuff, and can fight and whatnot. And some of the additions of Batman too, like he's the one who teaches Bruce a lot of.
He made that comment. He's like, I can teach you to fight, but I can't teach you. Yeah, exactly. Whereas like the Batman Begins, it was Ra's al Ghul that taught him how to fight, right? Like that was kind of the thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So we'll see what they do with this version of Batman, but my thought process is the reason he's so young and naive and coming to grips with what happened to him is because he is essentially a child. And he's still trying to figure out his way. He's still trying to figure out what he means to Gotham and why he's doing this. But they left room for everyone to grow. Like Gordon is not commissioner yet.
Yep.
I think the bat signal at the end was like the first, they've done that before where it's like, we have the bat signal, they've, in the end of the Tim Burton one, he's like, how do we call him? And he
gave us a sign.
Gave us a sign. So that's been played before, but I think the, mental journey that we're going on with Bruce is going to be a little bit more impactful, building on what we saw with Christian Bale, because we did go on a mental journey with him too, because he goes through a lot in those movies.
For sure.
And even with Joker, when he essentially gives up at that one point because he's just like, I can't beat this guy. That's the Alfred's some men just want to watch the world burn speech.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, loved Riddler, Penguin. Catwoman was fantastic. I think she's the perfect type of person to play that. I like that they didn't over-sexualize her. Mm-hmm. Now, don't get me wrong. Michelle Pfeiffer's version, that really sexualized version, was great for that setting. Yeah. I don't think a Catwoman in this setting would have hit it. I liked that they went the Long Halloween route where she was Falcone's daughter. And a lot of people told me too, like, I was thinking there was something much darker going on there. I didn't think it was just like he was the daughter. And I was like, no, I think Matt Reeves wanted us to think that and had limits.
Yeah.
So I really liked how they brought her in. They didn't over sexualize her. She had a good backstory. And they parted ways at the end, which means she'll be back as well. Like, pretty much everyone except Falcone will be back.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I'm fine with it. I love the new Joker. I thought that was such a great little Easter egg. I'm actually happy the scene wasn't in the movie that we saw on YouTube. I don't think it. I don't. First of all, the movie was long enough as it is.
Yeah.
And then the second thing for me was, I don't think it fit. I think it was better as an Easter egg, like deleted scene. I really do, and I'm okay with that. A lot of people were like, "Why was it in this movie?" I was like, "Where it wouldn't have flowed well."
Where, yeah, well, because almost like he would have taken like a detour of the story. Like Joker's such a big character and such an impactful character, especially with the history. Like essentially, this is the 4th or 5th Joker now at this point. Like he's such an iconic character that for him to be just dropped into a movie as just like this is a bonus scene, like the way
they introduced him was better because we did not see his face in that scene.
Yes.
And then we did see most of his face in the Easter egg. So it was the deleted scene. So it was much better to wait and see it after.
Yes. Than
it was to see it in this. So I actually enjoyed their little conversation, and the fact that all we noticed was like he had green hair and he had like something's wrong with his face.
Scars. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the, like one day you're on top of the world and the next day you're nothing but a clown. I was like, oh, so good. And then I watched the deleted scene and I was like, I am very uncomfortable right now.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm before the deleted scene was the thing that they even knew about. Like, I remember like going and Googling like the whole Joker thing, like 'cause at the end of the movie, right? And the director made the comment like, yeah, that was like not necessarily intended to be like, oh, he's the next villain. This is the Joker. The actor that played him is necessarily going to be, if they go down that route. Like he was very like kind of ambiguous about it. Like, yeah, it was there to kind of like, who it is, but we're not really going to go down that path. So the fact that there's this deleted scene, it's almost like, did he go back on what he said, or
I think
like
I think he wanted to throw everyone off, so that deleted scene was a bigger deal.
Okay.
It was kind of like when we got Leto at the end of the Snyder Cut.
Yes.
Remember how mad everyone was? Because they were like, why didn't you just do this in Suicide Squad?
Yeah.
Why didn't you just... Because we all knew Leto was capable. Yeah. That was never the issue. It was the writing and the stupid cap teeth and the tattoos. So one of the comments on this video, the deleted scene, said, see, we can tell this Joker is damaged. We didn't need it tattooed on his forehead. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But the end of the Snyder Cut Joker is like phenomenal.
Yeah.
It made me mad because I'm never going to get that Jared Leto like Ben Affleck. They weren't even in the same room. They did not film that together. You know that, right?
No, I didn't know that.
No, they were not. They filmed it at separate times. That's why they're never in the shot together.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
It's always a blurred version if you see them in the background.
Yeah.
There's also, did you see the deleted version of that? So I don't know how well you know Batman comics, but there's one where Joker kills Robin.
Yes.
He beats him to death with a crowbar, death in the family.
Yep.
So he references that, and then apparently Harley's dead at this point in that future.
Yes.
So they reference that, you know, when he says, so they reference that in the scene. Apparently, you know, the part where there's the long pause and then he just starts laughing. He's like, you almost got me, like that. Apparently there's a version where he turns and says, who do you think screamed loudest, Bat, the boy or the girl?
Ooh.
And I'm like, holy shit.
That's a little too far. Like, let's reel that back in a little bit.
That's dark.
Yeah.
But I mean, this Joker was too. Like, the Joker should always be uncomfortable. He should always say things that A, make you question your morality, just like Heath Ledger's did.
Yep.
And then B, he should always take it a step further than everyone else. And, you know, and laugh about it afterwards. Because that's what he, like, in this one, I love that we skipped the origin. I do. I really do. Because we've told that story 100 times.
It's the same thing with Spider-Man. The most recent Spider-Man. We skipped the origin. I'm all on board with that.
Yeah, we're good. We're like, let's just roll on through because we know what happened. That's why the opening to that scene when he goes, it's almost our 1 year anniversary. Like, cool. We skipped all that. Now he can do cool shit because we already know who he is. Yep. We don't have to wait.
Yep.
But when he's like, you think I get off on the murder scene photos? And then he's like, I thought you'd like be able to help or whatever he says. But the way he goes, it's so broke. The delivery of that reminded me of Jack Nicholson when he's like carving up his assistant's face, his girlfriend's face or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm an artiste, you know, like that dark where you almost want to laugh, but you're like, this is so fucked up. I should not be laughing.
Yes.
And then Mark Hamill did that really well in animated because it was they had restrictions. Like if you watch any of the behind the scenes on that, they were like, we pushed the censors literally as far as we could. There's so much stuff that got cut out of these episodes that we couldn't do. We'd have to re-record, reanimate because they'd be like, no. Just like if somebody went off a roof or something into the water, they always had to show them pop their head out of the water.
Right.
Because they couldn't survive. Die.
Yeah.
But like they said, Mark pushed the envelope as far as he possibly could. And the things he said, you know? And so if they do that with this Joker and continue that trend, which by the makeup alone, I can tell, because I have a feeling this is a combination of the Joker that falls in the acid, but he doesn't come out like Jack Nicholson. He comes out like that. Or maybe
Mauled.
He was a victim of an acid attack or something like that.
Yeah.
Because his face is
well, and his hair's missing and stuff. Like,
he's just like that was.
You see his fingers are all still bloody and burned.
Yeah. So I am very, very excited for the future of that franchise. I think they're off to the right foot. Finally.
yeah, for sure.
Well, I would love to learn more about your MMO journey this week.
Yes. So as I said last week, I never played World of Warcraft. The only MMO I have experience with history with, I played EVE Online in 2003 when it first came out, and I played for about 3 or 4 years. And unlike anything I've ever played before, because prior to that, it was pretty much just first-person shooters, you know, Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat, Tribes 2, Medal of Honor, that sort of thing. So as I said, I downloaded the game, free trial, jumped into it, played it on stream, which of course my community loved to see me just, you know, jump in for the first time. But as I was playing through it and I was asking questions like, you can't do this, or where's this at, or, that sort of thing, a lot of people were saying, oh, Final Fantasy has that, or Final Fantasy does that, or you'd probably like that in Final Fantasy. Because I know you guys said Mike was a big fan of Final Fantasy.
Yep.
And so through the conversation of that day playing WoW, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll download Final Fantasy. It's got a free trial as well. And I said, just for shits and giggles, I'll download EVE Online as well. And I'll just kind of do this like trifecta, like go around the whole, because I played EVE and I remember back in the day I loved it. I played it for years. Even came back to it when it came to Mac, because I'm kind of an Apple guy all across the board except for the PCs I used to game and stream now. So when it came to Apple, I was like, I'll give it EVE another shot. So World of Warcraft, my kind of general consensus is I definitely see why people love the game, get addicted to the game, because of the core mechanics of leveling, progression, loot, and that sort of thing. But I also think that me personally, because I don't really like dated things like movies, TV shows, like if it looks too old, or if it's from a dated period of time, I kind of like, I'm very much more of a sci-fi, futuristic, new, clean, shiny. I like remakes. I'm one of those rare guys that like a movie from the 80s or 90s gets remade today, and I'm like, oh, I like the new version. It's different. It's not the same, but I liked it. Total Recall is a great example. I love the remake of Total Recall. I love the original, but when you watch it, it's so old and dated. The graphics, the CG, like it's just so shitty looking, right? But it was badass back when it was first came out. I loved the new version with Colin and Jessica, and like I love the new version because it just looks badass, right? So playing World of Warcraft just feels dated. It just felt like an old game. I'm sure the graphics have been updated numerous times over the decades, but it didn't grab me, and I felt at some point was kind of like, okay, so go here. I played New World, so I played a lot of New World, and that was kind of my most recent MMO experience, right? Like I had EVE, I don't know, 18 years ago, and then I had New World last year. And New World obviously is very different than current MMOs because it's not a tab targeting; it's point click kind of thing. More like a shooter, right? It feels like a third person shooter. And so playing this and doing the whole like lock on target, click on the person, then click on your abilities, and everyone kept saying, oh, you need these add-ons. You got to have all these add-ons to be able to do all these things. And because I'm watching people play the game and I'm like, I see the little things keep going. I don't have to keep clicking them, right? Or they're pushing the buttons. So it's very hard to get used to that kind of mechanic of click on the target, click on your ability, wait for the ability to stop, then click on the next one, do this one before this one so they get the effect. And it's a lot, right? It was a lot. And then people were like, oh, there's more bars. And so I had a sidebar and 2 bars on the bottom. And I'm like, holy shit, there's so much to this game. So I don't know, I played for about 6 hours. And then the next day I created another character because once I got to a certain level, I could unlock new classes and start at a higher level. I'd have to like do the whole tutorial again. So I did, my first character was a Blood Elf Warlock Horde.
I was watching you play that.
One Horde. And then the second character was a Death Knight.
Okay.
And then
so
I think we're down
at a higher level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I met the Lynch King, and I went around and did some missions in that world, that realm. Like I said, I understand why people like it. I can see why people get hooked on it. I think it's just because I don't have the history. I don't have the nostalgia. And I don't have that like rich experience. Like people have stories, right? Like you have stories of like history of like, I played, we did this, we raided, we did this. And everybody kept saying too, like, you got to get past, you got to get max level so you can get to the raids and the dungeons. And I kept coming back to, I'm like, yeah, but I'm not enjoying this experience of leveling up.
Right.
It's not satisfying enough for me to keep going. I understand the good shits at the end. It's like all games, Destiny, New World, like gotta get to max level so that you can start grinding for gear and whatnot. So I understand that. So then I downloaded Final Fantasy, and so that was on Friday. Monday I jumped into sorry, jets flying. Woo. I jumped into Final Fantasy on Monday, and same thing, right? Everyone's like, "Oh shit, you're playing Final Fantasy? Cool." I think in generally, I liked Final Fantasy better. Again, upgraded graphics. The graphics just looked cleaner. The tutorials of walking me through how to play the game, I knew what I was doing quicker. Like they explained it, and I was like, okay, cool. Now I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing next. And I felt like I was up to speed faster. hated the fact that every time I talked to somebody, it was a cutscene or dialogue, and I had to like skip. And everyone's like, "Why are you skipping the cutscenes?" I'm like, "Because I don't give a shit about the story. Like, I just want to play the game and like see how it works."
You can't play Final Fantasy and
oh
not
my
give a shit
god,
about the
I
story.
triggered so many people, bro. It was like, what the fuck? I'm like, this is for science. I kept having to put in the title and say it. This is for science. I'm just learning how the game mechanics work.
That 1 to 50 story is brutally bad too.
Is it?
Yeah, apparently it gets like much better when you get to higher levels, which I've heard from trusted friends.
Yeah.
But that ARR story, even though they've redone it, it's definitely better, but it ain't that good.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think if I, just one-to-one comparison, I enjoyed Final Fantasy better. I like the fact that you change your you change your weapon and it changes your class, and you have a separate level for that, and the progression, the leveling was a little more easier to understand. But at the same time, the reason, like with WoW, like again, the aesthetic of the orcs and goblins and like the fantasy world and the graphic palette of more of a cartoony was a turnoff. Final Fantasy was the same boat, where it's like the anime style, it just doesn't do it for me. And I kept using trying to use like food analogies. I was trying to or TV show analogies. Like someone says, "This show is freaking awesome," and you're like, "Yeah, but it's set in the 1920s. I just don't like that genre. I don't like that aesthetic. I don't like. It might be the most amazing show in the world, but just on the cover, you're like, doesn't do it for me." Kind of like Call of Duty when they do the World War II stuff. I'm like, I'm over World War II. Like I want futuristic. I want sci-fi. I want whatever. So then fast forward to the next day, I jump into Eve, where again I played it 18, 19 years ago when it first came out. Which I think next week is like 19-year anniversary. Jeez. I immediately started enjoying it much better because it's space, it's sci-fi. All of the menus are like clean and crisp, and it's like a HUD. You're like in this like cockpit, and everyone was like a little jarred because you're looking at a spaceship the whole time, right? You're like not looking at your character. Your character's a little profile picture, but you're looking at a spaceship the whole time. It very much feels the same. You zoom out, you can see all around you. You can zoom real close into your character, your ship. It's very much the same, like lock on target. But it's the visceral effect of like literally locking on target, where you're like voo, 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 locked on, and then you start firing your weapons, and there's like, I enjoyed that experience. In fact, I ended up playing it for like 11 hours, whereas the other two I only played for about 6. I just kept playing, and I ended up going back and getting my old character back. My buddy had my login information because he played it for a little bit, and people were coming into the directory. And this is another thing too, as a content creator, as a streamer, Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft is a much bigger directory, right? Yep. So with my view count, I was 30, 40 down in the directory, no big deal. I had a few people come through, new people, like, "Hey, first time, what's going on?" With Eve, I was number 1, number 2 in the directory the whole time, and I ended up getting a raid from the number 1 guy too, so I stayed there pretty much the whole day. So I had a constant flow of new faces coming in, because my title was old player coming back to play for science, right?
I love that with MMOs.
Yeah, so they're like, "Oh, cool, man. So, when did you play? How much did you play? Blah, blah, blah." And just reminiscing. And then, of course, people being generous and giving, like, you can just like, "What's your name? Oh, here's some money." Send me the money. So I could like buy stuff, and people were giving me ships and stuff. Like, "Here, try this ship out. Dungeon keys." Like, it was just like, I was in. But again, I was enjoying it far more than the other two right away.
Right.
And so, I got my old character back and logged in and actually checked it out. I have 90 million skill points, and I've got like 1 billion net worth and stuff. So I'm like, okay, if I want to play, I'm ready to rock and roll. But I think that the general, the outcome, the conclusion of this whole thing is, I don't know if I'm an MMO player. I think the grand scheme of things, I know it's a commitment, right? To get into an MMO and to really play it and experience it, it's a commitment. And one of the things I've been trying to wrap my head around just recently is game selection in general, right? As a streamer, a lot of people just play one game, right? They're a one game person. That's just what they're known for. They're an ex streamer, right? And I tried that in the past with Destiny and with Call of Duty and Tarkov and stuff. And even though I say to myself, like, I could see myself playing a game like Tarkov indefinitely because they keep updating it, and there's the wipe mechanic where every 6 months you start from scratch and have to rebuild and new content's added. I always find myself shifting to another game at some point after 3 or 4 months. And so I'm thinking that I am actually more geared toward not necessarily variety, but like I have my 3 or 4 games that I can dip into.
Yep.
So I feel like paying a subscription fee for an MMO probably just wouldn't work for me, just because I would probably play for a couple months, either feel obligated to continue playing even though I don't necessarily want to, or feel like I did all that work and then cancel subscription is almost kind of for nothing,
Yeah, there's a few options there. There are some free to play ones, obviously, but you don't get as much out of it. I know Lord of the Rings Online just announced like you can get to, I think it's level 70 or 90 completely free, which is unheard of in the space. So I mean, if you wanted to like keep going down the rabbit hole and see if there's one out there that you would enjoy, the two that I would say you could try are Star Wars: The Old Republic, which the end of the game, like the last expansion, is broken right now. But I mean, like you'd have to put in hundreds of hours to get there anyway. So I think you could try it without worrying about that. Also, their 1 to 50 stories are different for each of the 8 classes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it has tons of replayability if you make a new character, and there's that. And then Elder Scrolls Online is way more. It's because it's made to be controller friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So your rotations are shorter, and it's not it's an action MMO is what it's called, and it's more geared towards I don't want to say a simpler rotation and stuff because WoW retail is pretty simple right now, but it's not. And again, you can play Final Fantasy with a controller too, but from what I've heard, it's like finger bending combinations to try and get some of your spells off. Right. But ESO is made with a controller in mind, so you could play it either way. I prefer mouse and keyboard, but I have when I had Stadia, it linked to my PC account, so I could lay in bed and play with a controller and get my dailies done and stuff. But yeah, if you want to try those two, I would say those would be the last two I would tell you to try. And then, if you don't like those, it ain't for you, 100%.
People were saying ESO and Guild Wars. Well, apparently was the other one that people said I should try.
Guild Wars is good. It's completely different than any other MMO in the sense of the way the game works, not necessarily the way it plays. Okay. But it's very similar to WoW and Final Fantasy, both aesthetically and in the style of the game. But the systems and the mechanics in Guild Wars are different than any other MMO. So gotcha. I like Guild Wars, but I just don't really have a reason to play it. I guess that's the best way I can put it.
Gotcha.
There's other games I would prefer to play over Guild Wars, which is why I don't play it.
And that's kind of where, again, I kind of come around to, okay, what games do I like? What are the things that I looked at and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. Looks good. Like right now I'm playing a lot of Icarus, which is a survival RPG, right? So your character has levels. Everything you do gives you XP. You hit a tree, hit a rock, you get XP, right? Very similar to, a lot of other things you do. It's all XP based. And you unlock skill points and you unlock talent points. And so you learn a new talent, something to craft, something you do, and then your skills make your things you do better. And I love that. I really do love that kind of progression where it's like, do this thing 100 times and now you do it better, or you get a better reward out of it. That's something I definitely Tarkov has, spoiled me in that sense, right? You level up your character to unlock better trader levels to buy and sell things, to unlock new mission or new tasks. And then also you have skills behind the scenes that make your character better. So you level up your strength, you can carry more. You level up your endurance, you can run farther. I love that. But at the same time, I'm wrapping my head around games like No Man's Sky, where there is no player progression. There's just like faction rep. And so you level up your factions to get more missions, get better rewards, be able to purchase things or go places. So I'm trying to find this balance of like, I like science fiction, so I'm definitely going down that path. 2 games right now that are on my radar coming. One's already kind of out, quote unquote out, which is Star Citizen, the game that will never be done. Everyone likes to say that. And Starfield, which is Bethesda's new RPG that's coming out. It's supposed to be like Skyrim in space. And that just got put on my radar, and I'm just now starting to pay attention to that. And try to like learn. I know they haven't released any gameplay, which everyone's like weary about. It's supposed to come out 11/11/22. Like it's in their trailer. Like that's their date.
We'll see.
We'll see. So I don't know, like that. Like, to me, it's like I'm trying to wrap my head around, because I love Cyberpunk. I loved Cyberpunk with all the bugs. I overlook those bugs as long as the game plays.
Did you try Outer Worlds?
I did not.
Give Outer Worlds a try.
Outer Worlds, okay.
It has an expansion too. It was a single player RPG. It's set in space. It's a really like wacky type of space game. It's made by Obsidian. Those are the folks that made Coder 2, and they're working on that Avowed game.
Okay.
So similar structure to that Skyrim style single player RPG, but a bit more streamlined, so it's not so open.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it when I played it. It's worth the journey. I think I finished the main game in less than 40 hours, so it's not really too long either.
And that's where I'm like, that's what I'm trying to like. I almost have to like feel like I have to tell myself, like, this is what I want to play. This is what I like. Like I enjoy playing DayZ, right? I played DayZ with some friends, but there's no progression. Like you can survive for weeks and your character doesn't get any better or anything like that. You just have more shit.
You're just surviving,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, you're surviving.
That's a sandbox where you just want to make your own adventure type of thing.
Exactly. But imagine if the longer you survived, like your character got stronger, faster. You could survive more with less food. You're more used to the temperatures and stuff. Like that would be really cool mechanic in the game. And that's kind of where I was like, that's what kills me with DayZ. It's like all you're doing is surviving, and there's no rewards for surviving. There's no, leaderboards. There's no ranks. So it's kind of like, again, what are you playing for, right? Like,
right.
I love Call of Duty. I played Call of Duty for years, and I still really enjoy it. But it's like I've gotten spoiled these other games where it's like now if you play Call of Duty, once you've hit the first prestige and you reset it, all you're going for is skins, camos. And I'm like, that's not enough for me. And that's one of the reasons why I don't play COD anymore like I used to, because it doesn't do enough for me.
No, I hear you. I agree. Isn't Ark like that, and like Conan and all those games? Don't they have like you can progress?
I think you unlock stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
and I do enjoy survival games. Like I said, I've played a couple here and there. Icarus is my current flavor because it is science fiction. It is like there's XP, there's progression, there's skills unlocks and stuff like that. And it came out when I was really heavy New World. So even though it's been out for, I don't know, I think we just had the 21-week update. I'm just now scratching the surface, right? I zoomed out on the mission screen because it's all mission based. It's session based, right? It's not open world. You fly down pretty much the same location every time. There's 3 or 4 biomes, but you'd land from scratch. The only stuff you'd come down with is whatever the cool new technology you buy. But you're like picking up rocks and sticks and building shit from scratch every time. And they keep adding new missions. So like every week they're adding 1 or 2 new missions or adding new items, new skills. So it's very cool because the game just continues to progress.
Right.
And there's something to come back to like literally every week. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to give this game a go and just play through it. And then I'm hoping by the time I'm done with that, I got a good sense of like, okay, I do like this kind of do your own thing. And I think No Man's Sky might be the next thing I jump into.
I tried No Man's Sky so many times. I completely understand the appeal. That game is just not for me because of what you just described, the lack of progression.
Yeah.
And again, there's progression in the sense that you can build cool shit, you can upgrade your ship, you can do stuff like that. But the lack of personal progression, like I don't get anything from X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
It turns me off because I feel like, again, I'm going nowhere. I'm just building stuff, and you know what? And then what? That's kind of like what I say, which you could say in any game, honestly. But
that's and I 100% agree with you. That's why I only played it for like a week, I think, and then I kind of left it because I'm like, all you're really doing is gaining money to buy more stuff and do more things. And everyone's like, well, it's an exploration game. You have all these thousands of worlds, and you can do all these things. And now there are like what are they called? Excursions or I forget what they're called. There's a thing now that you can like have a mission and it's co-op and stuff like that. And so there is some there. And someone was in my chat yesterday. I was talking about it because I'm like, I'm interested in playing it. What do you do, this and that? And they're like, well, there's faction. Like there is faction rep with the races. And so as you level up the races, you get more stuff you can do with them and better rewards when you do stuff for them. So very similar to games where they have those like these factions. The Cycle is a game that I plan on playing. It's very much like Tarkov. It's science fiction, but there is no player progression. The only progression are the 3 factions. But there is a literal like level it up and you can get better gear. Like here's this awesome gun, but you have to do level 12 with
Thieves.
Exactly. You get your faction rank up. You can buy cooler shit, better shit, and so you have to do missions and grind missions for that faction to have their dope gear.
That was my turn off with Sea of Thieves too. Was like I felt like I just had to do the same thing over and over again to grind for Athena rep so I could get the Athena, and I was just like, this is not for me. There's not enough diversity. And the Sea of Thieves updates are great. Like the Pirates of the Caribbean one was so much fun, but at the same time, like I only got halfway through it because they were like, all right, now go around and find 75 chests, and I'm like, That's one of the reasons I stopped playing Destiny, was because that's what Destiny turned into, was, you know, go kill the 1,000 thrall now on this planet at this time. And I was just like, I wanted Destiny to be more like WoW. And I've said this 1,000 times on this show and on the other shows, and it just never did that. And I felt like that's what I was sold back in 2014. And it never turned into that, because I understand of the restrictions on the engine and all that stuff, like no subscription. Sure. But that's why I stopped playing, was because it became too much of the same thing over and over again. You know, I love when they drop updates. I watch people play it, and, you know, pop in, see what's going on with the story, but that's about it. You know, nothing against the game. I just realized it's
not for you.
Probably not for me. I even tried, because a lot of my gaming, once I stopped streaming, I switched to my Xbox so I could play in my living room. Because I have a beautiful TV. It's like, why not use it? And I tried playing Destiny again on the TV. Brought my account over and everything, and it just
didn't do it for you.
Nope.
Yep.
The gunplay is still the best gunplay in all of video games, in my opinion, but just nope.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, last year was the first year that I kind of took a break from Destiny. I went real hard on Escape from Tarkov, and I feel like that game spoiled it for me. Like, now I need more of that progression. I need more of that diversity. And so I come back for, you know, an update here. And I played Witch Queen. I love that story. I love that campaign. It was great. I've done the new raid a couple of times. I like the idea of the gun grind and whatnot to be able to craft your own gun. But I just find myself playing other things because I've kind of like, it's ran its course. And to your point, like, once I've got a taste for these other games that kind of satisfy this appetite that I have, Destiny no longer does that. I'll swing back over and play or do a raid with some friends and hang out with some friends for a little bit. We obviously still have conversations about the game, but I definitely don't play it nearly as much as I used to.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I am. But a game we could maybe play together, and what we're going to hopefully find out more at the Bethesda Xbox presser, which happens the second day at GCX. And yes, like I said, we asked for permission to stream it and do a follow-up panel. But there is a Mandalorian, there's a rumor, Mandalorian MMO in the works at Xbox Bethesda. I have said for years that the Elder Scrolls formula as an MMO would work perfectly in the Star Wars universe. You know, putting people in a mega server, but they were in their own server, you know, doing stuff and seeing other people running around would be perfect. The Elder Scrolls Online has one of the most vast worlds with different biomes that you can visit and go to that I've ever seen, and they're still not even done with Tamriel, let alone going to the other continents in that game. But it would just work from a planetary standpoint of being able to go to Hoth or Tatooine or, you know, wherever. And seeing this in, like, just made me so happy. The thing that gets me, though, is it seems like they won't do Force users if it's specifically Mandalorian themed. You know, perhaps we're all going to be Mandos in one of the points of history of right. Star Wars. You know, who knows? Maybe it's the Mandalorian Jedi War and we're fighting against the Jedi, which would be really cool and different.
Sure.
I don't know what it's going to be, but it sounds really cool. And I trust ZeniMax Online because Elder Scrolls has become one of my favorite games to play. Their whole philosophy of, that's the other thing about Elder Scrolls, it's just play your way. If you only want to run around and do quests and explore the world, cool. We'll give you XP for that. If you want to go do dungeons and just run fun stuff with your friends and world bosses, cool. We'll give you XP for that. You want to do the really hard dungeons and like really start to get ready for raiding, cool. We'll give you XP for that. You want to raid? Cool. We'll give you good XP and good gear for that. You want to do PvP? Yeah, we'll give you gear. And you can do anything at any point with anyone. And that is attractive to me in an MMO, especially this day and age where the MMO generation has grown up. We don't all have, 70 hours a week to play games.
Yeah.
So it really helps. But with that being said, taking that into the Star Wars universe really makes me excited. It makes me excited to see Lucasfilm really letting all of these other studios across our industry get a crack at making a galaxy far, far away a playground. So there's lots of Star Wars stuff coming. I hope June 12th is an announcement for that game. But there's a chance they announce it at Celebration too, and then just follow up with something on June 12th. So
we could get a teaser on Celebration, right? Like an actual visual. Here's the logo. Here's the official name, like something like that. And then, like you said, the actual Xbox, Bethesda, that whole thing could be
a deep dive.
Yeah, exactly. And isn't there also a Star Wars game coming out for PlayStation, like an exclusive PlayStation
There's
game?
the one that was announced last week. which was based on that 8-second demo from E3 a few years back, where it's a guy in like a jacket, and he walks out, and he's obviously on Tatooine, and there's these two huge Imperial banners, and a TIE fighter flies up overhead, and it looks gorgeous. But that one was announced last week. It doesn't have a name or anything yet, but it's from a new studio. I just went to look. It says Jedi Fallen Order receives a disappointing release update. Not only was it that it's going to be current gen exclusive. Jedi Fallen Order 2.
Oh yeah, no, but also I'm seeing now here. There's a remake of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Is a PlayStation 5
they announced that
exclusive.
last year.
Okay, that's probably what I was thinking of. I remember just recently hearing something about Star Wars PlayStation 5 exclusive. So that's the remake of Knights of the Old Republic. Okay, but you're talking about something different. Okay.
Yep. Well, Clintus, we're not even going to get to the news today or Love, Death, and Robots because you and me spent a lot of time talking about a few different things. So we'll save once again Love, Death, and Robots, which is season 3 comes out next month. So perfect timing to mess with it. But we're going to put it back a week again and chit chat with Mike on that. But we're going to get out of here today. Clintus, where can everyone find you on the interwebs?
YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. It's all Clintus.
There you go. It's that simple.
Clintus.
You could probably Google it and it'll come up too. So
yeah.
You can head over to raredrop.co and check out everything we're working on. Listen to old episodes of Old Fashioned or some of our other shows. We got Star Wars and Scotch, Broman Podcast, you name it, comics. We got it. And the special announcement on Monday. Yes, there's that happening. I am also going to be putting my beautiful face back on the interwebs for Rare Drop a few days a week as well. So you'll be able to see me. Maybe I'll play some games with Clintus some days. We'll see what happens. Ooh. I'm trying to keep it to Xbox because that's like my thing right now. Is like I'm really enjoying holding a controller and not like. But I know eventually I'm going to get back into PC games, so we'll see. So there's that, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff coming. But remember, GCX is coming quick, so get your tickets. GCXevent.com/tickets. We will see you next week for episode 31 of the Old Fashioned Podcast. You all have a fantastic week, and we will see you then.
See you.